Good day, gentlemen and ladies who are watching so that you have a better understanding of your men, father, or sons, even. This is the second episode of The Voice of the Broken. First and foremost, we got a lot of positive feedback on the first episode. So thank you guys so much for coming through and leaving a comment, letting me know that what I'm doing is actually helpful. It means a lot. We got more emails coming through because of it. I know the content has been shared, but if you guys find value in what we're doing in terms of the new content, not just the To Be Better content, make sure that you share the content with somebody that you think will find value. I have a new email here. It's ready to go. I'm going to give a quick little disclaimer so that you guys are aware of what's coming in this email per our screeners and editors. Topics in this email are going to be domestic violence against the emailer and several suicide attempts by various means. Before I get into this, I had an epiphany today and I want to share it. Peaches and I went to actually, you know what? I'm going to come back to that at the end of the video. I have a challenge for you guys. So I'm not going to get into what we were doing, but while we were driving down there, we had a conversation about you can't control the fish. So men, any of you that have ever been fishing or even have a basic understanding of fishing, you know that a whole lot of prep goes into what you're going to be doing when you go fishing. You have to get your bait, you have to check the weather, you have to check the tides, you have to make sure that your boat is properly serviced if you're going out on a boat. There's a whole lot of things that have to be done to make sure that you have the most optimal fishing experience you can. However, you cannot control the fish. You can have the best bait, you can have the best boat, you can have the best fishing line and fishing poles, but you can't control the fish. You could even land a monster of a fish, and the test of your line may not be strong enough to reel it in. You may not be strong enough to reel it in because at the end of the day, you can't control the fish. I am stuck on this because we all understand what it takes to successfully catch fish. There is still an area of that is completely out of your control. This is a metaphor for everything in your existence. You can do all of the prep work and still have something that is outside of your control be a deciding factor. However, if you do the work and you understand where you're going and you know the bait you need to try to catch the fish that you want to catch, and you've done all of that, the chances of you catching the fish is much higher than it would be if you sat around hoping, right? So you can't control the fish. The things that you can control, you absolutely should go above and beyond to actually, do the thing. I have been going over this over and over and over in my head, and I really wanted to give you guys this like crazy meaningful speech, but the more I think about it, I really feel like just saying you can't control the fish should be enough. I know that if I just came on here and said that, though, people wouldn't get it. You can control the things that you have control over, and everything beyond that is up to fate. You can call it fate. You can call it the universe. You can call it other people's will. If you go out on that first day trying to fish and you don't catch anything with the proper bait and the good boat and the good lures and the good fishing line and a good guide that can take you to where they think the fish are going to be, it doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that it wasn't in the cards that day because you can't control the fish. So go out tomorrow, go to a different spot, find a honey hole where, the people know that there's going to be fish there. And that can speak on your community. You can take that metaphor and do what you want with it, but I felt like it was a pretty cool topic. And I also do think that this would be a good opportunity for you to teach your kids. And you can do so by actually prepping them, getting them excited, and then taking them somewhere where there's not going to be any fish. Let them fish, let them fail. Let them learn from that. Ask them what they learned from that. I'm sorry you didn't catch anything. Sometimes life is going to be disappointing. However, the next day, you're going to try it again. Take them to a place where there's probably going to be fish. Day 3, do it even again. Like do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend trip with your kids, fishing trip. And on the last day, really take them somewhere where there's you're guaranteed to be online. Fish online. We're going to fucking catch some shit today. And make sure that they actually catch something. There's life lessons to be had in that. You can do all the prep work and sometimes just not be in the right place at the right time. but you can be in the right place at the right time if you do your research. That's where I'm at with that. So let's get into this. I actually know the person that sent this email. I don't know him on a real life personal level, but it's somebody that talks to me quite a bit when they're in our live streams. And I am interested to read this. So for those of you who did not watch the first episode, know that there is going to be conversation here that is going to trigger people. This is about overcoming being in the darkest part of your life into success. Hi, Chris. This is going to be a bit of a long one and may possibly be a little triggering for some, so I apologize in advance. In the year 2018, I was 19 and I got into a relationship with a woman I thought would turn out to be my wife. Everything started out great, as it always does. We'd have date nights. Intimacy was great at first. I genuinely had no complaints as this relationship started. I didn't grow up in a very loving home. My parents were separated when I was young. And in a sense, I was brainwashed into believing my dad didn't want anything to do with me. I'm gonna pause right there. This is pretty fucking common for a lot of kids. The disruption of the relationship between the parents will almost always trickle down into the child having to take sides. More often than not, I should say. How about that? More often than not. You are going to have mom and dad at odds and starting to slowly poison the child to one of the parents. This could look like, do you want to be like them when you grow up? This could look like they don't love you, which is why they abandon us. It could be a whole lot of things. But that's more common than you think. He then went on to write that he only got me on weekends because that's all the time I was worth to him. My mother worked all the time, and I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, so I spent most of my time by myself, playing video games or watching movies, blasting music in my bedroom. So as I grew up, I craved to know what love felt like. I thought this relationship that started out so beautifully was it. I also want to touch on a couple of things with court systems. I have seen court cases after they've been said and done where the father has been given less than a full weekend with their kids. And what I mean by that is they get their kids Saturdays from 12 to 4 because that's all the court was able to negotiate with the mother. There are times where that's what men want. I'm not taking that away. However, I have personally seen a lot of manipulation in the court system where women get whatever it is that they ask for by making allegations of the father being a bad father or, not paying his way or being abusive or being a drug addict. There's always allegations made. And in the court system, it doesn't have to be proven because it's civil. Simply making the allegation is enough to destroy a relationship between the other parent and the child. I've also seen this happen with women. However, it is far more likely for a woman to manipulate the court system than it is for a guy. That's changing, but this is the cold reality of the world we live in. I highly recommend that you guys go to the To Be Better podcast on YouTube and search We the Parents. We did an interview with the creators of that documentary, and it's linked on that video to the documentary, which you can also watch for free on YouTube, and it gets into that quite a bit. This sounds like a teenager who grew up very alone, very isolated, and used escapism in terms of video games, TV, and music to connect. I can understand where there's a loneliness there. He then went on to write, as time went on, she explained to me that she hallucinates when she gets upset. Okay. Got all kinds of questions about that one. So I worked with her as best as I could when these times would arise, and we continued on. Then the mind games started, manipulation, lying, so on and so forth. Every day turned into an argument over the smallest issues, and I mean explosive arguments that ended up with both of us angry and then later myself feeling like shit. I felt like shit because she knew how to play with emotions and I'd always be the bad guy, even if I didn't start the argument. So reading this, as time went on, she explained to me that she hallucinates when she gets upset means that she is prefacing how bad things are going to get when things start getting bad. She's basically giving you a heads up that things are going to start becoming this way. This could be a situation where she just wants you to know what's going on. However, this is a conversation that happens during the courting phase, not during the dating phase. And I would guess that things kind of fell off of the lustful new honeymoon phase, started falling into the roommate phase of things, even though you probably weren't living together. And she started using these arguments that would become massive blowups for attention in order to fill a deficit of attention in her life. This is something that unfortunately a lot of people see. You see it with children who start acting up. This is spoken about pretty heavily in Adlerian psychology. If you do not get good attention and you are an attention-starved person, you will find any means necessary to get your meter filled with attention. Sometimes this is what that looks like, which is kind of a sad reality, but it is the reality. Before I move any further onto this, I need to let you guys know that I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I am just somebody who has made a lot of fucking mistakes in my life and have read a lot of self-help books and have been through shit like this. And I'm giving my opinions and my outlooks on things simply to try to help other people who are going through this or who could be going through this. The person who sent this email is living a pretty dope life now. Because he didn't go through with the things that he's going to be talking about in this email. And that's the point. We want to give you young men hope. So moving on, through the abuse, I would think I could make this better. This started out as a beautiful relationship and I can make this better. You can't, right? Because if this is actually who she is and she does have hallucinations when angry, that could speak to schizophrenia, which is a whole different discussion, and I'm not going to get into that. But you can't make this better. If this is who this person is, you can only control the fish, right? You could do all of the work on you and be the best boyfriend you can be and be at the right place at the right time and bring all the gifts and do all the things. And at the end of the day, you can't control the fish. So you can do you, try to be the best version of you and hope that the person that you're with is going to reciprocate that. But there's no guarantee that you're going to get that from people. Some people are too broken and have not done the work on themselves to have a good life. He then wrote, through the abuse, I would think I can make this better. He then went on to write, so I tried to do that in various ways. I'd get her little gifts or take her out on dates. Even if it was just simply laying out her favorite comfy clothes, if she wanted a night in after work. Like you've said, we're fixers, because we talk about that a lot on the To Be Better podcast. Men are by nature puzzle solvers. We want to remove obstacles and make the lives of those around us as good as possible when we care about those people. Now, I had to preface that with, or I needed to specify when we care about those people, because we get emails on the To Be Better podcast quite a bit about people who just genuinely don't like the people they're with. And you can see it in their actions towards people. So, back to the email. So I did everything I thought I could. I had a long dating history before this relationship. I mean, you were at 19 at that point. You couldn't have had that long of a dating history, bro. You're still a young man at that point. I think that you guys are still very young anyways, but I could be wrong on that because I don't know how old you are now. But I had a long dating history before this relationship, and I was at a point where I wanted my last relationship. I justified a lot of the abuse by thinking I deserved this, or I shouldn't have said this, or made this joke, and some of the jokes started actual arguments. I wasn't making fun of her or anything like that. They weren't jokes targeted at her by any means, but it was enough for yet another argument, and usually more physical violence. My only goal was to make her laugh. After months of only speaking to her and her mother, I felt very alone, but I did that to myself. Okay, so there's a lot to break down there. One, male or female, the moment something becomes violent, get out of Dodge. The moment somebody crosses the boundary and physically puts their hands on you, there is no redemption to that. It's over. Pack your shit and move on. There are people who will abuse and recover and become recovered abusers. I've read stories about that. However, do you want to be there when the relapse happens, or if things go sour and it goes from a punch to a cut or a shot? or you don't wake up the next day, right? Like that is not something that Peaches and I will ever condone. The moment things physically get violent, it's over. I also don't like abuse in terms of mental and psychological abuse. That's a very different discussion and one that takes a whole lot more recognition. I do believe that you were being abused here. I see, and I can throw all kinds of buzzwords out, gaslighting and, narcissism and all that bullshit. But reality comes down to, the relationship that you were in, what you went through. You saying I deserve this sounds like a form of psychological trauma. I truly believe that. If you think that you deserve to be talked down to or hit, that almost falls into like Stockholm syndrome, right? Like there's a lot there. You don't deserve abuse. You don't deserve to be hit. If you crack a joke and you're not making fun of her and she flies off the handle and starts making an argument, she's got fucking problems. And this is not a safe space for you to be in. And I can get on here and talk about her actions and the things that she's done wrong, but ultimately this relationship is over. There's no point in getting into that. And you can't control the fish. He can control himself. He can leave. He can go to a new fishing hole, whatever the case may be. But this is a him thing, not a her thing. I would also like to speak on the isolation that comes along with all of this, because in trying to keep you safe, physically and mentally, you isolated yourself from the people that you could have talked to when you were being abused. And you see a lot of this in a lot of domestic violence, a lot of control situations where people isolate their partner away from the people who can help them so they can really control and dominate what happens in the relationship. You should really make sure that you always have a community. You should always make sure that your community is there for you. This person is a part of our Patreon and Discord community. So I know who this person is. Having that community around you and that group of men who can hold you to a standard that you can go and vent to, that could give you advice in a relationship, even though you're not supposed to be talking about your relationship out of your relationship. When there is abuse, that kind of supersedes the don't talk outside of your relationship. But he could have went to his friends and been like, hey man, I feel like I'm kind of alone right now and I don't have anybody to talk to. Could you have a beer with me and like fucking just sit down and like spend an hour with me so I have somebody to kind of vent to? And you don't have to talk about, the intricacies of the relationship. You really could just have a conversation about sports or your favorite video game or whatever it is that you want to talk about, things that you're passionate about, just so that you have a connection with somebody again. That community fucking matters. He then wrote, they started out with her asking me to unfriend people on Facebook or block this person or that person. I got berated for having a past with other people constantly, but I kept thinking I must deserve this, so I'm going to stick it out and do my best to fix it. I have to fix this. So I did everything I could to make her days easier. She'd always tell me how she hated her job and she hated that we lived with her mom, so I worked a lot of overtime to get us out quicker and tried advancing my career being a mechanic quickly so that I could be the sole provider. I thought I couldn't make it any easier for her. If I could make that happen, then she won't be so angry with me anymore. We can be happy together again. I think I was a little delusional at that time, thinking I had discovered love for the first time. I did everything I could to fight for that love I craved and make our lives better. So you clung on to this idea that you finally found somebody that was going to be your forever person, and you allowed them to abuse you, and you stayed while it continued to happen. And this is a tactic that you see with a lot of narcissistic people. The isolation gets you away from your friends. Those people aren't good for you. Get them off of your Facebook, because the more isolated you are, the more they're able to control you. We talk on the To Be Better podcast a lot about having your social circles and making time for yourself and self-care, doing a bowling day once or twice a month, or going to the garden with your friends, or whatever it is that you need to do to actually have a connection with people outside of your relationship. That shit is necessary. You will never get 100% everything that you need to have your needs met from one person. And by needs, I don't mean sexual or intimate. I mean I'm super into overlanding and adventure biking and photography and weightlifting. And I have all of my goals and my hobbies, and Peaches meets a lot of those. However, when I'm in the gym, for example, if I'm lifting with my buddy Sean and Sean goes, "Come on, motherfucker, I know you got more than that. You're being a bitch right now." It's going to make me want to push harder than it would be if it came from her. I'm going to have a banter. There's going to be emotional needs that I'm getting fulfilled from the other relationships from the people in my life that my relationship is unable to give me, because you're not going to be able to meet all of those needs. And when you isolate people, or you allow yourself to be isolated from people, the people who are going to take advantage and abuse you are a lot more capable of doing so, because there's nobody there to watch your back. This is a very dangerous situation. And if any of you are in a relationship where somebody is making you unfriend and block everyone on your social medias and stop talking to people, that's a problem. I can understand if it was your previous girlfriend and she's still posting, heart winky faces on your fucking photos or whatever. That's a different conversation. But in a realistic situation, just because you have friends on social media, that's not a reason for your person to be like, delete them, or to get upset that you have a past. That's a very immature mindset. I think that's dangerous. He then wrote, "After 3 or 4 months, she started getting physically violent with me. I went to work with black eyes, cuts and bruises every day. I worked on cars at the time, so cuts and bruises were easy to explain. The black eyes I'd come up with excuses for, or straight up lie when my coworkers asked what happened. It got to a point where I isolated myself from everyone else, just so she didn't have a reason to yell or scream at me again." You allowed yourself to be a victim in this. "I remember one specific occasion. I was on the phone with my little sister for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. She was 12 at the time. My girlfriend comes into the bedroom, sees me on the phone, and sits down next to me. She hears a girl's voice on the phone and says out loud, 'Who the fuck is that bitch?' I quickly got off the phone, angry, and said, 'I don't give a fuck what you do to me, but don't you ever call my sister a bitch again. She's fucking 12,' and walked out of the house. A few months later, we got into an argument that would ultimately end our relationship. I used a bit of the anger I was feeling and finally said, 'I'm fucking leaving you.' I packed up some of my stuff and left to go see a few of my friends in another city and figure out where I was going to live. I got a transfer at my job. My friends let me live with them, and life went on, or at least I thought it did." Guys, if you are in a situation where you're being abused, you need to have it fucking documented. And I know that it's fucking embarrassing to have to call the police to be like, "Hey, she fucking hit me." I know that it's embarrassing to tell your friends. I understand that as a man, it is frowned upon to defend ourselves to women. We are literally the only species on the planet who have created a social structure that allows us to be attacked by something and not defend ourselves against it. It doesn't matter what it is. Every creature on the planet will attempt to defend its life when attacked, except for us. We have deemed it acceptable to not hit our women, or women in general, when they attack us, because it makes us less than as a man. I think that's fucking bullshit. I think that when that line is crossed and somebody physically assaults you, regardless of their age, gender, or any other deciding factor, you have the right to stop that threat from harming you. If you are that person, you need to leave. Document your bruises. Document how it happened. Have somebody be aware of it. I have a friend who wrote in an email that's being edited that will probably be the next or the episode after the next, who was cut from collarbone to collarbone that had 187 stitches. And the only reason that dude is alive right now is because he's 6'7". If he was any shorter by like 2 inches, that collarbone cut would have opened him up. And he was abused by a woman because he didn't want to defend himself. And he did not believe that it's okay to defend yourself. And he was almost killed because of it. When he contacted the police, they laughed at him because of his size. "Oh, you can't stop this from happening. She's just a little girl and you're such a big guy, blah, blah, blah." If it wasn't for his CO in the military and the military police, he would have ended up in prison because of things the way that it played out. I'm not going to get too far into that because that story is coming. Domestic violence against men is higher than domestic violence against women statistically, and we don't even know what the true stats are because men won't document it because of the way that it makes us appear. I didn't read this email. I don't know where this is going, but I'm willing to bet there's some fucking shady shit that's about to happen. Well, probably because he wrote, or at least I thought it did. Maybe 2 months after I left, I'm back in my hometown and took a friend to work. I pulled out of the parking lot of his job, which coincidentally used to be my ex's workplace. Immediately pulling back onto the street, a cop pulls me over and I immediately go back into the same parking lot I just pulled out of. Turns out I had a felony warrant out for me. The police took me to jail and explained that I have 2 charges that essentially meant I abused my girlfriend. Yes, the very same one that spent almost a year abusing me mentally, physically, and emotionally, any of which I never reciprocated unless you consider spitting venom in those heated arguments, abuse like that. Anyway, I go to my first court date after getting bonded out of jail, and I find out that my sentence could have been 20 years in prison, and there was no way the state was going to dismiss the case, even with character witnesses. That's why you have fucking documented proof that you're being abused. I struggled with this for a while and finally decided I'm going to end my life. Before I move on, I have to touch on this court thing, guys. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not giving legal advice, but I have been in the system. I was in the system for a very long time in my life. And the plea bargain situation is scare tactics because if they can get you to accept a plea bargain, it's less work for the public attorney's office, your public defender, the state's attorney's office. It's less work for them. They consider that a win. If you're looking at 20 years and you take a plea bargain of 5 and you do 5 years in prison and you're now a documented fucking domestic violence abuser, they still view that as a win for them. Most of the time when trials actually go, like court cases actually go to trials and you have witnesses, you stand a pretty solid chance of actually getting out of things. I'm not saying take everything to trial. I am saying you should be very aware when they start offering you deals. If you turn it down, they're going to offer you another deal. If you turn that one down, they're going to offer you another deal. And then they're going to set a trial date. And then before the trial date, you're going to have to go in and pick a jury. And while you're there, they're going to offer you another deal before jury selection because they don't want to take things to trial. It costs money for trial. The state has to pay for it. It's a big fucking deal. If you think that you can beat the case, you need to get a lawyer, a real lawyer, not a public defender. Not a lawyer, guys. Just know that I've seen a lot of people take plea deals on the very first plea deal because it sounds better than the prison time. And I have been offered plea deal after plea deal after plea deal. Anyway, I go to my first court date after being bonded out of jail. I read that. I struggled with this for a while and finally decided I'm going to end my life. That seemed like the easiest solution, and I had just lost a friend to suicide. So I thought it couldn't have been that hard. I tried using a belt, found that I'm simply too much of a bitch for that. I had a friend loan me a gun. I couldn't bring myself to do it. It'll be quick and painless. What's the problem, I thought. After my friend got his gun back, I thought maybe I could drink myself to death. My very last attempt at killing myself, I had a flash of the people in my life, friends I reconnected with after the abuse, new friends I had made, and most of all, my little sister. She's 13 years old. I can't leave her like this. I am my mother's only child. But my dad had another kid with my stepmom, and she's such a sweet little sister. She's always ran to me when I visited my dad's house and asked about me when I wasn't there. As my dad and I reconnected and got to know each other better, he'd tell me about these situations where she'd ask questions. She'd ask me about these. Cut that. As my dad and I reconnected and got to know each other better, he'd tell me about these situations where she'd ask questions about me, which made me feel loved. While it also hurt, she lived 2 hours away and I could hardly afford to keep gas in my car to make it to and from work, which was a 20-minute drive one way. Thankfully, cell phones are a thing and I could talk to her anytime my dad called or anytime I called my dad. So when I had that flash of all of these people who have shown me time and time again that I mean something to them, I felt like I couldn't just leave them. Not like that. So you found a reason to push forward. I would also like to point out that prison sucks. right? Being incarcerated sucks in any fashion. House arrest sucks. Probation sucks. A lot of that shit is a cash grab from the state. You have to pay for your supervision. There's a whole lot of things that go into that. However, that's a very small portion of your life. If you have to do 5 years on probation and you're in your 20s, you still have 30 or 40 years of existence left. Looking at that like my world is over, I mean, there's a lot of things that are unaccounted for. You have no idea what your life is going to entail. As somebody who has been down that road, I'm living a really dope fucking existence now. And you can get your rights restored, you can get pardons, you can fucking do a whole lot of things to improve your life. You can still, find love and open businesses and have kids, and you can move past this. Being in your 18 to 25 years old, you don't fucking understand life yet. Everything comes to you in terms of what TV tells you and what movies tell you and what, the radio and podcasts and, all of the information that you have is information from other people's existences, not yours. You haven't got to live your life yet. This kind of mindset is dangerous. Obviously, that's why we have the podcast, but knowing that you had people that do love and care about you, that's the community that people need. I really hope that in all of this, you actually reached out and called somebody and was like, hey, I'm fucking struggling right now. I don't want to push forward. This doesn't seem like my life is ever going to go anywhere. This feels like the end to me. Are you busy? Can you come and just hang out with me this weekend? Like spend a day here, something? Are you busy tonight? Like 2 hours is a long drive, right? It kind of would be a 4-hour round trip to spend an hour with somebody. But if somebody's going through it and they made that phone call, would you go? Do you have people in your life that you love enough that if they made that phone call, you would stop what the fuck you're doing, get in your car and drive for 2 hours to spend 30, 45 minutes with them? 2 hours, 3 hours, and then drive home? Even if it meant you missed work the next day, would that hour or that day of pay, would that day of pay be worth knowing that this person's life has continued and all you had to do was show up and sit in silence and just be alone in a room with them? We don't need our problems solved, right? Sometimes we don't even need to fucking complain about our life. We just need to know that somebody's there. Making that phone call at 3 a.m. and having a groggy motherfucker on the other end go, what's up, dude? What do you need? Are you okay? Do you need me to come? Like that could be enough. Like I got that one fucking guy that will answer the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I know that in the event that if this gets any worse, he'll answer the phone again. That could be enough. I couldn't explain why that happened or even what triggered it. Maybe it was the act of trying to end my life, but eventually after living for other people, I had to learn how to live for myself. I went through patterns of being depressed for weeks at a time and contemplating, why am I even alive to begin with? I didn't ask to be here. I want to touch on that. I didn't ask to be here. You know how many people, younger generations, say that stupid shit? I didn't ask to be here. Do you know that you have a 1 in 400 trillion chance to exist? 1 in 400 trillion. That's how rare life is. You may not have asked to be here, but you have the gift of life. And the meaning that we assign to our existence dictates a whole lot for us. I think it was Nietzsche that said, to live is to struggle, and to survive is to find meaning in the struggle. And then it was copied and put into a Tupac song. We are going to suffer from time to time. We're going to go through hardships. We're gonna look at things and it's going to feel like the world is fucking collapsing down on us. But we have the opportunity to learn from it and grow. And the more we go through hardships, the easier it is to overcome things that are not really that hard, right? And I understand that there are people out there who don't do well with struggle, and they don't do well with hardships, and they don't do well with anxiety, and they don't do well with depression, and everything triggers them, and it's a very hard life for them. However, when you're faced with hardship, it's no different than going to the gym. When you get put under pressure and you start working through things, you get stronger. It doesn't get easier, you get better. We have to do these things. He then went on to say, I didn't ask to be here. I developed a drinking problem. I would drink to try to drown my feelings. Every single night, I drank straight out of the Jameson bottle until I was drunk enough to sleep. Jameson is so gross. I've also been there, but not with Jameson. I was a Jack Daniel's drinker. Ironically enough, I was drinking the same thing that my mom drank when she was still drinking whiskey before she went to vodka. I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about my feelings. We're men. We're supposed to be tough and suppress our feelings, right? Eventually, I figured out that doesn't work, and I had to make changes in my life. It doesn't work. And though we are supposed to be tough, we are not supposed to repress. Cut that. Yes, we're men. Obviously, that's, to be tough, suppress your feelings, suck it up, don't be a pussy. Like, all of that is very typical statements. However, when you have people who love you, you unloading on them is not going to be the end of the world. The community of men and men that you respect are going to listen to you when you're having struggles. We are problem solvers by nature. So if one of our friends or somebody that we love comes to us with a problem, we do want to try to solve it. You would think that knowing that men are problem solvers, that when you have a community of people that care about other people, that if you were to go, hey, I think that tonight might be my last one here, that somebody would go, no. What are you doing right now? Call me. Like, let's have a discussion. I'm down to hear you fucking scream and cry into the phone if that's what you need. You can full on anchor man that shit in the phone booth if that's what it's going to take to get you through the night. I don't like the idea that we're supposed to suppress. I definitely agree that there is a time and a place to work through our bullshit. Sometimes not crying is the answer, and then letting it out later. Sometimes not having an emotional response and working through that shit 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks later is the answer. I believe that. I believe there is a time and a place for a meltdown. I also don't think that everybody needs to see that. So I agree with you in this. However, my best friend Sean, if he was to call me and was having a fucking meltdown, I don't give a shit that he's crying. I'm not going to tell him to suck it up. I'm not going to tell him to be tough. You're a man. I'm going to fucking listen to him because I love him and I want to make sure that he's okay. The people who care about you don't give a fuck if you cry. That's just not a thing. I know that that's the social stigma, and the men who believe that because of our parents, because of the tough guy shit on TV. If you think that men don't fucking cry, all of us do it. All of us. We may not do it in front of people. It may be on a fucking dirt road somewhere in our car, ugly crying, snot bubbles, the whole nine, and then pull ourselves together and fucking go home because people don't need to see that. But when you cry, it releases stress fighting hormones. It actually makes you feel better. So if you need to suppress to get through something and then work through it later, do that. But don't suppress and expect it to never come out because it's going to fucking come out. I had made a TikTok where we were talking about taking a water balloon and attaching it to the faucet and saying, this is your relationship. This is resentment. And I was going to turn the water on and have a little bit of a conversation while the water was running and the balloon was filling up, and I was going to turn the water off. Be like, cool, you didn't resolve anything. You've suppressed it. You got angry. You guys had a big fucking meltdown. You don't feel any better. Nothing at all was resolved. And now you get to carry this water around for a little while. And then the next thing happens. And I was going to turn the water on. I was going to let the water balloon fill up. And I was going to get until the black water balloon was starting to become gray see-through, knowing that it was about to burst. And then I was going to pop it and get water all over everything and be like, this is what happens when you don't deal with your shit. And all that suppression finally comes out. It gets on everyone and everything around you. That's not a healthy thing to deal with, guys. It's not a healthy way to deal with things, is what I should have said there. Okay. Started writing more lyrics that still currently have no music attached to them. I started exercising and eating healthy. I made it a rule that I would only drink when I wasn't in depression. Even though I implemented these changes, I would still go through weeks of depression, making myself do an exercise every day regardless of that. Sometimes it helped. I started singing again as an attempt to try something else to get my feelings out, another outlet to get my head right. You want to see somebody like really truly achieve something, break their heart. The heartbreak that you hear in music lyrics and the TV shows and the movies of people who overcome adversity and greatness because somebody broke their heart is very common. Like the tragic love story ends up having a crazy ending because people will be like, I'm gonna fucking show you. I like that you went to writing lyrics. I wrote poetry when I was homeless. like all the fucking time. Every day I had a journal I carried with me, and that's all I did was write. Because it helped me work through my demons and work through the things that I couldn't control. And at the time I lived in a victim mentality. Everything was everyone else's fault. Couldn't fucking possibly be me. You know, I didn't make these decisions. I would never choose to be homeless, but yet there I was. And I was making a choice to be homeless because when I got money, I did drugs with it. And if I fucking, you know, had an opportunity to stay at a friend's house, I viewed that as a win and never aspired to do more than that. So there was a lot of things that fell on me. I want to touch on the exercising and eating healthy. Your gut health is directly correlated to your mental health. So if you are exercising and eating right, you are going to feel better. You're going to start getting dopamine releases every time you go to the gym. You get new PRs. You're going to get, you know, small victories that you get to celebrate. First time you ever bench 225 is like a day you'll never forget. That's a big fucking accomplishment for a lot of dudes to be able to finally have 2 plates on each side of the bar. You remember that. And then it makes you feel like you're invincible and that you could fucking do shit because at one time you're at the gym struggling to move the bar, right? So like all of these small incremental goals show you that you can fucking build and do, and it really does a lot for your self-esteem. The other thing I want to touch on is drinking. And I touched this on the first episode, I believe. Alcohol is a depressant. So if you are somebody who is easily depressed or you deal with depressive episodes, you should not fucking drink, period. It may make you feel better in the moment, but when you come off of it, you're dehydrated, which means your fucking system isn't operating properly. Your brain needs water to function. So when you're dehydrated, your brain's not working optimally. You become depressed, you get hungover, and you take NSAIDs. NSAIDs have been proven to 40% increase of depression. So now you're taking a depressive to deal with your depression, and then you're taking an NSAID on top of it to deal with your hangover. How the fuck do you expect to ever feel better? You're suppressing, you're masking, you're not working through the things that are actually going on. You will never fucking improve if that's where you're at. And that's never talked about. It's never fucking talked about that alcohol is a depressant unless you're dealing with somebody who has an alcohol problem or they've been committed. Television shows, movies, it's all a tear in my beer shit. Like, it's not the answer. It's absolutely not the fucking answer. He then wrote, eventually I simply had to face my issues and trauma head on, letting myself feel whatever I was going to feel and take each lesson from each event from my childhood or my abusive relationship that would come to me. Logically, it made sense to learn from anything possible to prevent any of these situations happening again and to help me not feel that way. Emotionally, I never wanted to face anything. I've described in this email, I'll read that line again, so cut that. Emotionally, I never wanted to face anything that I've described in this email. Why would I want to relive that stuff again? Thankfully, I did it anyways. You have to relive it again. And it's going to hurt. It's going to be hard. It's not going to make you feel any better in the fucking moment. It's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect the relationships around you while you're working through things. But if you don't work through this and you're that person that believes you deserve the abuse, if you never worked through it, you're never going to believe that you deserve more than that. And part of that is facing your demons head on. I love that you finally fucking put your chin down and swung for the fences, bro, because you can't live like that. You can't live your life believing that you're a victim, that you have no control over anything. You have control over a whole lot of shit in your life. And you can look back on that fishing analogy. There's a whole lot of thing in that fishing metaphor. In that metaphor, there's a whole lot of things that you have control over. And it may not work out to the way that you want it to work out, but you have control over shit in your life. Find a new fishing hole. I got into what I consider to be my first real shot at a career, testing fire alarms and inspecting fire extinguishers. 2 years of spread out court dates and working my ass off to save money. Finally, the DA decides that 2 years of probation and 160 hours of community service would be enough. I figured that's the best deal I'm going to get, so I took it. So they threatened you with a 20-year sentence, probably offered you 10 years or 5 years in prison. You said, no, I'm going to fight it. They came down to 2 years of probation and 160 hours of community service. If they truly believe that you were guilty of that, you wouldn't have gotten an offer of this. This is what I was talking about earlier with them just trying to get a plea bargain to get the case done and over with so they can close the case and move on to the next one. I finished out my probation in September of 2023 and moved across the country the moment I was allowed. Good. Fucking good, bro. I'm going to read this and I'm going to come back to that. I've spent the last 3 years working blue collar jobs such as fire inspections, and now I fix overhead doors. I'm still young. I'm only 25. Shortly after I started that job, I was put on probation for 2 years instead of 8 they originally were going to give me. The moment I was able to move across the country, I did. If you are somebody who does drugs, like on a regular basis recreationally, and that's like a go-to thing for you, or you're an addict, or you are in an abusive situation, or you're committing crimes, you're doing the same bullshit that you've always done, getting away from the normal people that you have in your life is a great way to restart your fucking existence. Moving to the area that I live in now means that I cut off ties with fucking everyone that I knew. I really did come down here with a clean fucking slate. I left all of my bullshit, all of my friends behind, and knew that if I was going to quit drinking and quit taking pills and quit going to the bar and doing all the shit that I was doing, I needed a brand new fucking lease on life. I had to move 2 hours, almost 2 hours away from where I was living at the time to fucking get away from those people. And 2 hours is a pretty good distance. It's far enough that I'm not going to go drive up there for 2 hours to go to the bar and then drive home. So sometimes that's an extreme situation, but sometimes that's what it takes. When we were talking to Matt Bell from Team Recovery, he says that he asks addicts all the time, if I could take you out of here right now and get you admitted to a rehab center, would you take it? And most of the time they say no because they're not ready to quit. But that's what it takes. Starting a fucking new life somewhere else. Sometimes that's what it takes. Not always, but it's definitely a fucking tool. He then wrote, I met a woman on Twitch that turned into a relationship as well. That relationship's had its struggles, but it was genuinely a great relationship. We learned to communicate well. We learned how to love one another. Things were starting to look up for me. All of this work was finally paying off. I thought seeing that love was still possible for me and I could get into a decent field of work considering I'm a felon. I started to finally feel good about my life. If this was in September of 2023, you met a woman and fell in love in less than a year, and I'm curious how fast you guys fell in love with each other. It sounds to me like you need people, bro. Like you're somebody that needs that validation through another person, and because of your isolated childhood, you want to be half of someone else, right? Like, if that makes sense. You just need to be needed, kind of thing. Be single for a while. If this relationship ends, I haven't gotten there yet, but if it ends, take some time. Give yourself a year or two of not dating. Work on you. Get a good, continue to further your career. Read books. Go to the gym. Do everything that you need to do to become a better man so that when you start dating again, your expectations of a partner will be higher. Because when you have worth and you believe in yourself, you're not going to settle for less than. You're going to be shooting for higher than what you believe because you want that level up, right? Like you should be trying to date out of your league. If you're a 5 or you believe you're a 5, you should be shooting for a 7 or an 8. You may not get it, but you should fucking try because you never know what somebody else is going to see in you. And let's be honest, most of the time we see ourselves as less than other people anyways. So you should be aiming higher. But taking the time and learning, about you and learning about your traumas and why it is that you don't like to be alone and learning to overcome that will make you stronger. And it's going to make you value the relationships and the people that you have in your life a whole lot more. And you're not going to settle. You're not going to find yourself going, this is the best I can get because nobody will love me. My parents weren't here. My first couple relationships were a fucking mess. Like, nothing wrong with being alone for a while, guys. All right. However, I lived with 3 other people in a tiny house, and I knew that wasn't going to last forever, but I couldn't afford to be on my own, being paid $16 an hour. I spent 3 months without a job after that company got bought out. It turns out being a felon in the U.S. is really frowned upon in the workforce. It depends on the people you work for. I know a lot of felons who have no problem getting jobs. It also depends on how long you've been a felon, because if it's been 5, 6, 7 years, it's a whole lot easier than when you first get out. or while you're on probation, because there's a lot of nonsense that comes with this. And violent felons have a whole lot more to deal with because they're afraid of the way that you're going to interact with their customers, and it puts the business at risk. The longer you've been a felon, the less you have to worry about that. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel in that aspect. I applied for every possible job I saw that paid decently and I knew I could do. At one point on Indeed, Indeed is the website. So at one point on Indeed, there were over 100 applications submitted in a span of maybe 2 weeks. It feels hopeless when you spend 8 to 10 hours a day applying for jobs, calling companies, getting interviewed, only to be denied due to a criminal record. Eventually, I found a job that would take a felon. Good for you for the wherewithal to push through that, because it's very easy to get discouraged. I would also like to point out that just because you're a felon doesn't mean that you can't own a business. And if you can't get a job, fucking create one. There are things like a contracting license. You can't be a felon and have a contracting license. So there are things that can be a problem if you're a felon, but you can do handyman work, or you can create, a fucking pressure washing business, or you could create a auto detailing business. There's a whole lot of things that you can do with a criminal record that it's your business, your insurance. You're not relying on other people. You know that it's yours. You're not going to fucking do anything that's going to jeopardize your livelihood. Which is why some businesses won't hire felons, because they're afraid they're going to jeopardize their livelihood. That 3 months without a job was the catalyst to learn a skill I could take anywhere. I took the opportunity fixing overhead doors. That's not an oversaturated field by any means, and people always need doors working, whether that be overhead or automatic doors or your pedestrian doors. They have to run. And this field has not only allowed me to move across the country, but also live comfortably enough on my own, which is more than I ever thought I could accomplish. Now the goal is to accomplish even more. I want to be able to set up a comfortable life for myself, and if I get the pleasure, my future wife and kids when that day comes. Okay, so here's where you're at, bro. You know your job, right? You know how to fix the doors. However, do you know that you could probably get a LLC, S Corp, whatever, get a sales tax certificate, buy the doors wholesale, upsell them to the clients when things get broken, and cut that whole process out, and create a business for yourself doing repairs and selling doors, and start going door to door in your area looking for people who have damaged garage doors or outdated garage doors or overhead industrial doors or whatever it is that you're doing, and start trying to sell these doors to people. You are going to create a whole lot of jobs for yourself in that aspect. And then you can look into other things that you could do as well that would coexist with that job. Maybe hire other salesmen to go out and work the neighborhoods and try to do that. It's no different than the people that are trying to sell solar panels. But you have a trade now. You have a skill that a lot of people don't have that you can utilize to create a business for yourself. And it doesn't cost a lot to open a business. If you're trying to open a retail space and fill it with fucking garbage to sell people and consume, it's a very different topic. But if you are selling your ability, tattooing, trade work, welding, fucking fixing overhead doors, whatever, you're selling your time at that point and your expertise. And you get paid for your expertise, not your time. It's important to remember. The relationship I found through Twitch didn't work out, okay? But sometimes people aren't meant to be together. I fucking agree. Dude, good for you. Just because you meet somebody and you decide that you want to try to make it work with them doesn't mean that you're destined to be with that person for the rest of your life, and that's fucking okay. So much so that if it's not working, you don't fucking owe anyone anything more than going, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm not happy. I wish you the best in life, but I'm going to fucking scoot on down the road and go. You don't have to argue. You don't have to fight. You don't have to allow somebody to persuade you to be there. You can simply make your statement and beat feet. It's fucking okay. Protect your peace at all cost. If something's not going the way that you think it should and you guys don't align on long-term goals, or your retirements look different, or whatever it is, and it's happening early on in the dating phase, you're not going to change this person. This is what they want and what they believe. It's better to find people that align with you and have the same goals and aspirations, because you're going to mesh better. You're going to have the same retirement plans. You're both going to want kids and a marriage and a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on a hill with a white picket fence and a fucking orange tree in the yard. Like, these are the conversations that need to be had. For you guys who are single that are starting to get into the dating pool, fucking good luck, because it's a cesspool. However, we created a list of questions that's on the tobebetter.co website. tobebetter.co, the number 2, bebetter.co. There is a questionnaire there for the courting phase. So when you first meet somebody, you print the shit out. It's a PDF download. It's free. And go on a date. You're going out Chili's. Cool. You're going to have a drink. They're going to have a drink. And you guys are going to start talking. And while you're talking, be like, hey, you want to try something? I downloaded a list of questions off of a website for new dates. It's going to give you guys something to talk about. You can pull out the questionnaire and start asking life questions. And you're going to find out real fucking quick if the person on the other side of the table is right for you, or if you even align on some level, or if you don't. The amount of people who have downloaded that, who have been like, you guys saved me a whole lot of fucking time by realizing within the first 5 or 6 questions that this isn't it for me. It's free. It's fucking free. We did the work for you. All you gotta do is print it and have a conversation. Words are easy. Go do that shit. He said, I'm okay with that. I still have goals and dreams to accomplish. I'm finally, after 6 years of healing, comfortable enough living for myself. Good man. Good fucking man. It took a lot of healing, a lot of time, and a lot of reflection. After all of the growth I've done, hearing the words, I'm proud of the man you've become, from my dad lets me know I'm doing something right. That, this is probably a me thing, but that I'm proud of you shit fucking gets me so bad. We could be watching a movie, watching TV. That I'm proud of you shit will fucking make me break down and start sobbing every fucking time. It's something that a lot of people crave to hear, especially when you had a childhood like I had. You learn to live without having the praise and the approval of others. But when somebody recognizes your effort and tells you that, it's like a fucking peacock spreading its feathers, bro. You feel so good. It just changes. It can change your entire week. A fucking single sentence. It's just the, I see you. I see the work you've done. That is a feeling I can't describe, nor were the words anything I thought I needed to hear. If you would have told me just 5 years ago that I'd be living decently on my own and have a good job, I'd have laughed in your face. I thought my life was over 5 years ago. So you're doing a thing as a convicted felon, a survivor of abuse, and you're here when you almost were guaranteed not to be. Good for you, bro. Good for you. You did it. You fucking did the thing. And you did the work. It took a lot of healing, a lot of time, and a lot of reflection. That reflection is important. And I want to talk about that. The reflection is not dwelling on the past. It's accepting that the past happened. You get so many people who live in that mindset. And then you get the people that live in that mindset of all of their bad shit that get around people who have other bad shit, and all they want to do is wear their problems like a badge. And then it's like a fucking dick showing contest to see who had it worse. Oh, I was beat. Yeah, well, I was beat with a 2x4. Well, I was raped. Well, my dad tried to drown me in the toilet. Like it really becomes that. And you see that with people in circles where their entire existence is their trauma. That's not reflection. That's you living in that past, looking back on your past and going, yo, that sucked. That time in my life was fucking hard, but it happened. You accept that it fucking happened. You assign the meaning to it. Why did that happen? Because I made this decision. I made this decision. Can't control the fish. Obviously, she did some foul shit. But you made choices beyond that to not live in that existence. Who you are now is a reflection of the shit that you've gone through. You don't become strong by sitting around. You do it by overcoming hardships. You then went on to write, and even though I still struggle with depression and still have a lot of work to do on myself, I'm in a much better place now than I was then. In every facet. I've made my life better. I have made my life better. Bro, you did that. You fucking did that. Thanks to a random flash of people I love while at my lowest point in my life, I'm making it. So that flash of a thought, which can happen in a quarter of a millisecond, you can work through so much in your head that you could never explain. It would probably take you an hour to go through all the explanations of the things that you thought of in a half of a second. But you made a decision in that moment to change your fucking life, and you did it. And you could have played the victim. I was abused in my relationship. My parents didn't fucking love me as a kid. I was alone and isolated all the fucking time. I'm a felon. Can never fucking do anything with my life because no one will hire a felon. You didn't make excuses. You just fucking persevered. I really wish I could explain that random flash, but it's just something that my brain did, or maybe some higher power was speaking to me. Reflecting on that, I have no answers, but I know that I am happy to still be here and have even higher goals for myself. I have a lot of things to figure out, but I can say that I found the strength to live through this experience. Ooh, I fucking love that you called it an experience. Dude, oh my God, I love that so much. I really am the meaning of the word kind of person. Because of the To Be Better podcast, Peaches and I have had to really read between the lines on a lot of things, and like we'll hear something, and you guys don't really see this on the podcast very often, but we'll pause and we'll Google a word and we'll look for the actual meaning, like the true definition, and not our understanding of the word, but the actual true definition. And I'm going to pull that up because I really love that you called it an experience. Practical contact with observation of facts or events, encounter or undergo an event or occurrence. That is a neutral fucking statement, bro. You're not playing the victim. You're not saying that you're a fucking gangster soldier motherfucker for overcoming it. You're not saying that that was a byproduct of something. It was something you experienced. That happened. That's acceptance. That's such a good fucking way to describe your past. I experienced that. I lived through this experience. I love that. I fucking love that. I've set goals. I have things I want to accomplish. I definitely still struggle, but sometimes that voice still says it would be easier if we just didn't live anymore. That's the enemy. Whether you want to believe in God or not, when you think of something, I need to go to the store, I need to get an oil change, that's an I statement. You're talking about you. Those are things that you know you need to do. It's never we or you should. You should really go get gas in your car today. Okay, yeah, you're right, Brain. Let's go do that. That's not how that works. I truly believe that. I also believe that the enemy never wants to see you do well. Your haters never want to see you do well. When people start really getting it in life, obstacles are going to become more frequent. The hate's going to come. You're going to start finding new ways to doubt yourself. There's going to be a lot of ugliness that's going to come along your path. But the more you experience life, as you said, and you go about doing things, the less you are to listen to that bullshit. You said, in those moments, I still have to ground myself and remember what I am here for. And if anything, it's to be an example of perseverance, to make people laugh, to make days a little easier for other people. Because I needed that when I was going through the worst time of my life, and I want to be that for as many people as I can, whether that be through poems I write, advice I give, or jokes I make. Whatever I can do at that moment, I'm going to try to do. Anyways, that's my story, my lowest point to now getting somewhere I feel better at. I'm still a work in progress, and you always will be, but really aren't we all? I apologize again for the length of this email, but I hope it helps someone out there. Much love, guys. I'm willing to bet that this email is going to help somebody out here. You did the work. Somebody else is going to hear your story and go, you know what? If this guy, random fucking stranger on the internet, can do it, why the fuck can't I? Right? And maybe that's going to be the reason that they persevere. I actually have that tattooed on me. Can't see the pee because of the thing, but I believe in that. I had to tattoo positive words on my body to combat the bullshit in my head, right? And I'm not going to get too far into that right now, but I have things like overcome, integrity, persevere. I have other stupid shit, time bomb on my fingers. You know, I got a cracker on my arm because I'm a Florida boy, but there's a lot of strength in a word, I guess is why I'm bringing that up, because you use the term perseverance and you use the term experience. I said in the last episode that maybe it wasn't, it might've been on the To Be Better podcast, but I believe that if we are made in a God's image, whether you believe in God or not, or whatever your deity is, I do believe that we have the power to speak things into existence because we are made in God's image. There is a power in that. I believe that when you want something and the universe tries to block you from getting it and you persevere and you fucking push through that shit, eventually the universe is going to get out of your way and you're going to start creating those things. I have a buddy of mine named James who's a tattoo artist in Georgia. He worked for me for a while years ago. He's one of my close friends. I love him to death. He's newly married, kids, doing the life thing. And he's wanted to own a shop for a long time. And I tried to open a business with him and told him to start looking for a place. And we were going to open a studio together. And he started looking and things started falling into place for him because he took steps. He stepped towards his goal. So his goal stepped towards him. And I didn't even have to get involved. He is now going to be owning his own studio. I mean, he's already signed the lease. It's coming into fruition for him because he said, I'm going to do this. You're not going to stop me. Get the fuck out of my way. I've got this. And he started taking all the steps necessary to make things work. He's found employees. He's found a location, bought all the things that he needed, and he's fucking doing the thing. There's a strength in knowing that the universe will get out of your way. It's almost like, I don't even know how to explain that. I just truly believe that when you really start going for the thing that you want the most, it'll happen. You just have to continue to push when adversity tells you otherwise. The amount of people that I know that started businesses who were fucking dead broke when they opened their doors that made it, a lot of the stories are very similar. There are people out there who open businesses and fail. Don't get me wrong. The entrepreneurship is fucking low. Only 10% of people ever actually try to be a business owner and only 2% actually succeed. But that also comes down to the work that they're willing to put in. Most people think they're going to open a business and work a 40-hour work week and go on vacation and make all this money, and it doesn't work that way. You're going to work harder as a business owner than you've ever worked in your fucking life, and it never ends. It never ends. You could be on vacation and you're still checking your emails and doing work shit because your business depends on you as the owner to do it. So that's completely irrelevant. The thing that I wanted to talk about at the beginning of the podcast that I'm going to throw down as a challenge for you guys. This morning, Peaches and I went to the Naples Botanical Garden to take pictures. When we were courting, the first time I ever kissed Peaches in public was at that garden. So while we were out walking around today, I grabbed her by her arm, spun her, and kissed her. Gave her a good one, right? Just in front of fucking God and everyone. Didn't give a shit who was watching. And she melted in that moment. And we talked about how that was the first public display of affection we ever had with each other. And I am going to challenge all of you who are watching. If you are married or you are in a long-term relationship and you're in the roommate phase, find a place that holds special meaning to your relationship. The first public display of affection, a place where you did karaoke for the first time or you had a really good night while you were falling in love with each other still, and replicate that. Go to the karaoke bar, go to the place you first kissed or held hands, go to see a movie in a drive-in if you can find one. I don't fucking know. Whatever it is that you can do that's going to make your person remember why you fell in love and remind yourself of the amazing person that you have. We become stagnant because we have abundance. I'm going to do an entire episode on abundance, I think, probably for the To Be Better podcast, but I'm going to touch on this and I'm going to wrap this up. When you have abundance, you take things for granted. We live in a country where running water is fucking everywhere. We don't worry about it being tainted. We don't worry about bacteria. We don't worry about anything. And in the event that there's a possibility of something being wrong with our water, we get fucking boil notices. There are countries that have to walk miles to a well and fish that shit up out of the well and still filter their fucking water. We take that for granted because we have it in abundance. Your relationship, when you go home to the same person every fucking day, you take for granted. You forget that there's another person that's living that life beside you because you're feeling your feelings and you're living your experience. Well, they're living their experience. And the more you take that experience for granted, the more you are going to grow apart. That abundance and the removal of a scarcity mindset is going to destroy your relationship. Make date nights a thing. You can't go on dates every night of the week. You just fucking can't. So use that as your scarcity. Make those date nights matter. Get excited for them. Do things that's going to improve your relationship. That's it, guys. I went a little bit longer than I hoped. I was trying to keep all of these around an hour after I'm done editing. It might be, but thank you for tuning in. Please share the content. Peaches and I are doing a whole lot of meet and greets. We have one coming up in June in Vegas. We have Thailand in October. If you guys would like to be a part of any of that, go to tobebetter.co and click on events. The questionnaire content that is on the PDF is on the website. It's a PDF download. The check-ins are on there if you guys are wanting to get into that as well. I have created a kind of public Discord for the Voice of the Broken. I'm not going to post the link publicly. If you've watched this and you are in a low place and you need a group of men to talk to, send an email to tobebetter.co and ask for the Discord link for the Voice of the Broken. It is not a public link. It will not be shared. I will ask you your Discord name before I send you the link to make sure that everybody that's in there has been given the link by us, because we don't want it to get filled up with memes and stupid shit. It's supposed to be a place where people can go and actually speak to somebody when they have no one else to turn to. There's currently about 80 people in there, and I know most of them. So we have a whole lot of men in there who are willing to step up and listen. And because of the size of the community, there's somebody in there all the fucking time. So don't do anything stupid. Reach out. At the very least, you'll have somebody to talk to and maybe get you through the night. See you guys on the next one.